Get your dirty hands off that coffee machine. Animals don't drink from the same pot as us.
Craig Dawson grabbed the mug from Brielle Williams' hand and dumped it straight into the trash. Brielle stared at him, calm, still.
I just wanted some coffee, Craig.
Then bring your own, from whatever hole you crawled out of.
Tanya Prescott stepped closer, wrinkling her nose.
God! Do you even shower? The whole room smells different since you got here.
Brielle said nothing. She folded her hands, kept her eyes steady. Craig snatched his soda off the counter, popped the lid, and poured it slowly over Brielle's head. Cola streamed down her face, her white blouse, her laptop. The screen went black.
Now you look right.
3 coworkers watched. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. What none of them knew, her husband was watching everything through the building's security cameras. Man, pouring a drink on someone like that, that's just low. Let's get into it. Let me take you back to the beginning. Charlotte, North Carolina, a Tuesday morning in late October. The kind of morning where the air smells like wet pavement and the sky can't decide between gray and darker gray. Brielle Williams woke up at 6:15 in a one-bedroom apartment on the east side of the city. Small kitchen, basic furniture, a coffee maker that took too long, and a bathroom mirror with a crack running down the left side. She stood in front of that cracked mirror, buttoning a white blouse, smoothing the collar with careful fingers. Simple gold earrings. No designer labels, no flashy rings, except the thin wedding band she wore on a chain around her neck, tucked beneath her shirt where nobody could see it. This was deliberate, every detail, every choice. Because Brielle Williams had an MBA from Duke. She'd spent 5 years as a senior brand strategist at one of the top marketing firms on the East Coast. She could walk into any boardroom in America and command the room. But today, she was driving a 6-year-old Honda Civic to a mid-level marketing coordinator job at a company called Stonebridge Media Corp. And she was doing it on purpose. 3 months ago, her husband's company, Pinnacle Ventures Group, acquired Stonebridge in a deal worth hundreds of millions. The transition was supposed to be smooth. New leadership, new systems, standard corporate integration. But Derek Williams, CEO of Pinnacle, had heard things. Whispers from departing employees, vague complaints that HR brushed aside, words like hostile and toxic showing up in anonymous exit surveys. So Brielle proposed something unconventional. She would go in at the ground level. No title, no connections. No one would know her last name meant anything. She'd apply as a junior coordinator, sit in the trenches, and report back what the culture really looked like from the inside. Derek didn't love the idea, but he trusted her judgment more than anyone alive. She got the job in 2 days. Walked in on a Monday morning with a leather notebook in her bag and a quiet determination behind her eyes. Now, Stonebridge Media Corp. Let me paint this picture for you. Open plan office, glass-walled conference rooms, the kind of space that looks modern and collaborative in the brochure, but feels like a fishbowl when you're actually sitting in it. Gray carpet, white desks, the hum of printers and forced air conditioning that's always 2 degrees too cold. The break room sat at the center of the floor, a small square room with a refrigerator, a microwave, a counter, and a round table with 6 chairs. Nothing special. But in an office like this, the break room is where the real politics happen. Who sits where? Who talks to whom? Who gets invited to eat together? And who eats alone? Brielle ate alone, every single day. She was one of 3 black employees on the entire floor. The other 2 kept their heads down so low, they were practically invisible. One of them was Sheila Greer, a quiet IT technician who'd been at Stonebridge for 8 years without a single promotion. Sheila was the only person who showed Brielle any kindness. A small nod in the hallway, a soft, "Don't let them get to you," whispered on her second day. Then, There was Craig Dawson, 12 years at Stonebridge, senior marketing manager, the kind of man who confused seniority with supremacy. He ran the department like it was his personal kingdom, decided who got pulled into projects, who got credit in meetings, who got invited to Friday lunches at the steakhouse down the street. And he had decided from the moment Brielle walked through the door that she didn't belong. His right hand was Tanya Prescott, early 30s, ambitious in the worst way. She didn't have original ideas, but she had Craig's loyalty, and in an office like Stonebridge, that was currency. She laughed at his jokes, backed up his decisions, and when Craig picked a target, Tanya made sure the whole floor knew it. One more thing. After the acquisition, Pinnacle's security team installed new cameras across all common areas, break rooms, hallways, lobbies, conference rooms. Employees were told it was a routine corporate security upgrade. Nobody paid attention to the cameras. That was a mistake. The first week was a slow burn. Monday morning, Brielle arrived 15 minutes early, set her bag down at her assigned desk, and opened a laptop. She was reviewing campaign data when a meeting invite popped up on her screen, a strategy session for Stonebridge's biggest client account. By 9:30, the invite had been removed from her calendar. She walked to Craig's desk. "Hey, Craig, I noticed I was taken off the Whitfield strategy meeting. Was that a mistake?" Craig didn't look up from his screen. "No mistake. That meeting's for senior contributors. You're not there yet. I've already been working on the Whitfield data for—" Did I stutter? He glanced up now, one eyebrow raised. "Go back to your desk, Brielle. When I need you in that room, I'll tell you." She went back, sat down, wrote the first entry in her leather notebook that night. Wednesday, the team meeting. 8 people around the conference table, Craig at the head. Brielle had prepared a competitive analysis, clean, sharp, backed by data she'd pulled over 3 nights. She raised her hand. Craig ignored her for 6 minutes. She waited. Finally, he gave her a nod like he was doing her a favor. Brielle stood and walked the team through her analysis, market positioning, competitor gaps, a clear opportunity in the digital ad space that Stonebridge had been overlooking. The room was quiet. A few people were nodding. It was good work, and everyone at that table knew it. She was 45 seconds into her second slide when Craig cut her off. All right. I think what Brielle's trying to say." He stood up and walked to the whiteboard. He rewrote her entire framework in his own words. Same structure, same data points, same conclusion, just coming from his mouth now. "This is what I've been thinking about for a while," he said, capping the marker. "Good to see the numbers back it up." Brielle sat down. She didn't argue. She didn't correct him. She watched 7 people in that room look at Craig and nod. The same people who had been nodding at her 30 seconds ago. Nobody said a word. Thursday. Her lunch disappeared from the fridge. A Tupperware container she'd labeled with her name in black marker. Gone. She checked everywhere. Behind the milk cartons, on the wrong shelf, in the back, nothing. Friday. It happened again. This time she found the empty container in the trash can next to Craig's desk. Her name was still visible on the lid, smeared with what looked like barbecue sauce. She didn't confront him. She bought a granola bar from the vending machine and ate it at her desk. She wrote everything down that night. Page after page. Dates, times, exact words. Then came day 10. The break room. 11:45 in the morning. Brielle was sitting at the round table eating a homemade lunch. Rice, grilled chicken, roasted vegetables in a glass container. Her laptop was open beside her. She was reviewing data for a report nobody had asked her to write, but she was writing anyway. The room was quiet. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the faint buzz of the fluorescent light above her. Then the door swung open. Craig walked in first, Tanya right behind. 2 other coworkers, Bennett and Keller from the sales team, trailed in after them, mid-conversation about some football game. Craig saw Brielle. He stopped walking. His mouth curved into that slow, deliberate smile. the kind that isn't really a smile at all. He turned to Tanya. "Look who's here again." Tanya tilted her head. "She's always here, like she lives in this room." Craig walked to the counter. He grabbed his large cup of soda, the big one, 32 ounces, dark cola with no lid. He turned around. He looked straight at Brielle, their eyes locked. And then Craig Dawson walked directly to where Brielle was sitting, raised the cup above her head, and tilted it. Slow. The cola hit the top of her head first. Dark brown liquid ran through her hair, down her forehead, into her eyes. It streamed down her cheeks like dirty tears. It soaked through the collar of her white blouse, spreading in dark blotches across the fabric. It dripped off her chin onto the table, pooled around her glass container of food, and ran in thin rivers across the surface of her laptop. The screen flickered once, twice, then went black. Craig didn't rush. He poured the entire 32 ounces like he was watering a houseplant. Steady hand, no expression on his face except that cold, satisfied look, like a man completing a task he'd been looking forward to all morning. When the cup was empty, he set it down on the table, right in front of her. The hollow plastic sound echoed in the silent room. "That's my table. That's my room. Learn where you belong." Tanya erupted. That sharp, cruel laughter, the kind that bounces off break room walls and stays in your chest for weeks. She clapped her hands once, like she'd just watched something entertaining. "Oh my God, Craig." She was grinning so wide it split her face. "She looks like a drowned rat." Bennett and Keller stood near the door, frozen, eyes down. Bennett shifted his weight from one foot to the other. Keller suddenly became very interested in his phone screen. Neither of them said a word. Neither of them moved. Brielle sat perfectly still. Cola dripped from her chin. Her white blouse was destroyed, dark stains spreading across her chest and shoulders. Her laptop was dead. Her food was ruined. A thin stream of soda ran off the edge of the table and pooled on the floor by her shoes. She looked up at Craig. Not fast, not frantic, slow and steady. The way a person looks at something they want to remember for a very long time. Then she wiped her face with the back of her hand. Once, twice. She closed her ruined laptop. She placed the lid back on her food container. She picked up both items, pushed her chair back with a quiet scrape, and stood. She didn't say a word. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She walked out of that break room with her shoulders straight and her head level, and cola still dripping from the ends of her hair onto the hallway carpet. The security camera in the corner of the ceiling, the one nobody ever looked at, captured all of it. The angle of the cup, the slowness of the pour, Craig's face, Tanya's laugh, Bennett's silence, Keller's cowardice, every single frame. 2 hours later, Brielle sat across from Nolan Foster in the HR office. She described the incident calmly, the deliberate pour, the words, the ruined laptop, the laughter, the witnesses who did nothing. Nolan leaned back in his chair. He tapped a pen against his desk 3 times. "Look, Brielle, Craig's been here a long time. He's a little rough around the edges. We all know that. I'm sure it was just a bad joke that went too far. I'll have a word with him." "A word," Brielle repeated. "These things happen in offices. People clash. The best thing you can do is try to build a good relationship with the team. You're still new here." "Will there be a formal investigation?" Nolan exhaled like she'd asked him to move a mountain. "Let's not escalate things unnecessarily. I'll talk to Craig. That should be enough." He didn't take a written statement. He didn't ask about the laptop. He didn't offer to review the security cameras. He didn't call Bennett or Keller as witnesses. He did nothing. Brielle walked out of Nolan's office, down the hallway, past the break room where a janitor was mopping cola off the floor, back to her desk. She sat down, pulled out her phone, and sent one text message to Derek. "It's worse than we thought." Word spread fast. By the next morning, Everyone on the floor knew that Brielle Williams had gone to HR about Craig Dawson. Not because Nolan told them, because Craig did. He stood by the coffee machine at 8:45, loud enough for half the office to hear. "Can you believe that?" She goes crying to Nolan because of a little soda. "I've been here 12 years. 12. And this girl shows up 5 minutes ago and thinks she can start making accusations?" Tanya shook her head in rehearsed disbelief. "Some people just can't handle a real workplace." Craig looked around the room, making eye contact with each person. The message was clear. Pick a side or get out of the way. Everyone picked his side. That same afternoon, Brielle opened her email to find she'd been removed from the Whitfield client project. No explanation, no meeting, just a message from Craig to the team. "I've restructured the Whitfield account group. Brielle won't be continuing on this project. She wasn't a good fit for the direction we're taking." 3 people read that email. Nobody replied. Nobody questioned it. Then came the tasks. Craig started assigning Brielle work that had nothing to do with marketing coordination, data entry for old files that nobody needed, organizing the supply closet on the second floor, restocking printer paper across 3 departments, picking up lunch orders for the team, his team, from the restaurant down the street. "Think of it as earning your stripes," he told her, dropping a stack of filing folders on her desk so hard they scattered across her keyboard. Everybody starts at the bottom, even diversity hires. Tanya followed Craig's lead like a shadow with sharper teeth. She sent an email to the entire department, CC'd everyone, including Brielle, with the subject line, "Friendly reminder, break room etiquette." The body of the email listed rules about keeping personal items off shared tables, cleaning up after yourself, and being mindful of odors that may affect colleagues. She signed it with a smiley face emoji. 14 people received that email. Not one replied to defend Brielle. Not one. The social freeze was total. At lunch, Brielle sat at the break room table alone. The chairs around her stayed empty. If she walked toward a group in the hallway, people suddenly remembered somewhere they needed to be. Conversations stopped when she entered the kitchen. Doors closed a little faster when she were behind them. One morning, Brielle arrived to find her desk had been moved. It used to sit near the window, close to the rest of the marketing team. Now it was shoved against the far wall, next to the supply closet, facing a blank partition. No one told her. No one explained. She just showed up, and her things were already there. Monitor, keyboard, her small cactus plant, arranged like someone had relocated a piece of furniture they didn't want to look at anymore. Craig walked past her new desk that afternoon. He paused, looked at the blank wall in front of her, and smiled. "Better view for you, isn't it?" Sheila Greer still nodded when they passed each other. Once, Sheila paused by Brielle's desk, pretended to check a cable on the floor, and whispered without looking up, "I see what they're doing. I'm sorry." Then she stood and walked away before anyone noticed. 2 weeks after the soda incident, Brielle walked into the break room to refill her water bottle. Just water. She wasn't eating in there anymore. She'd stopped after what happened. She just needed to fill her bottle from the cooler and leave. Craig was leaning against the counter, arms crossed, talking to Tanya about some client dinner. He saw Brielle walk in. He stopped mid-sentence, watched her cross the room. Tanya saw her too. This time, Tanya was holding a large iced coffee, venti size. The plastic cup was sweating with condensation. The lid was already off. Brielle reached the water cooler. She unscrewed the cap on her bottle. She pressed the lever. Water started filling the bottle. Tanya stepped away from the counter. She walked straight toward Brielle. No detour, no hesitation. Her heels clicked on the tile floor, sharp, deliberate, like a countdown. Brielle heard the footsteps. She turned around. Tanya was standing right in front of her, less than 2 feet away, eyes locked, a smile on her face, the kind that has no warmth in it at all. And then Tanya raised the cup and threw the entire iced coffee directly into Brielle's face. The impact was immediate. Ice cubes hit her cheeks, her forehead, her collarbone. Brown liquid exploded across her chest, soaked through her blouse in an instant, ran down her arms, and dripped from her elbows. Ice scattered across the tile floor in every direction with a sound like breaking glass. Brielle gasped. The cold hit her lungs like a punch. Tanya tilted her head, still smiling. "You always look so dirty. Now it matches." Craig hadn't moved from the counter, arms still crossed, legs still relaxed. He watched the whole thing with a grin so wide his back teeth showed. "I told you before," Craig said, slow and casual, like he was giving friendly advice. "This room isn't for you. But you don't listen, do you? People like you never listen." Coffee dripped from Brielle's chin onto the floor. Ice cubes melted around her shoes. Her water bottle lay on its side, rolling slowly across the tile. She stood there for 3 full seconds, didn't wipe her face, didn't step back, didn't make a sound. Then she raised her hand, wiped the coffee from her eyes with the back of her wrist, looked at Craig, looked at Tanya, one after the other, slow, memorizing. She picked up her water bottle, turned around, and walked out. No words, no tears, no reaction they could feed on. The security camera recorded every frame. The throw, the ice, the smile, the silence, Craig's crossed arms, the empty room, all of it. That evening, Brielle sat in her apartment. The ruined blouse was soaking in the sink. She could still smell the coffee in her hair even after 2 showers. Her hands were steady when she picked up the phone and called Derek. She told him everything: the soda, the coffee, the emails, the filing, the isolation, the silence, all of it, in order, the way she'd written it in her notebook. Derek listened without interrupting. When she finished, the line went quiet for a long time. She could hear him breathing, slow and controlled, the way he breathed when he was making a decision that would cost someone everything. "I've seen the footage," he said. "All of it." As part of the post-acquisition security protocol, Derek had remote access to every common area camera feed at Stonebridge. He'd been reviewing them. He'd watched Craig pour soda over his wife's head in real time. He'd watched Tanya throw iced coffee in her face. He'd watched Nolan Foster dismiss her through the glass wall of his office without writing a single word down. "Give me 48 hours, Derek said. The next morning, Derek contacted Pinnacle's legal team. He ordered a full review of all security footage from Stonebridge's offices over the past 30 days. He requested every HR complaint filed in the last 3 years. What he found made it worse. Brielle's complaint had never been filed. No record existed. Nolan Foster had erased it, or never created it in the first place. But that wasn't all. The legal team uncovered 3 previous complaints from former employees of color at Stonebridge, all targeting Craig Dawson. Racial slurs in meetings, exclusion from projects, intimidation. Each complaint had been handled by Nolan Foster. Each one resulted in 0 action. 2 of those employees resigned within months. The third, a black woman named Dana, was terminated for performance issues 6 weeks after filing her complaint. Her performance reviews prior to the complaint had been spotless. Derek compiled everything. He did not alert Stonebridge management. He did not send a warning. He prepared. Okay, I had to stop on this one. 'Cause this isn't just a bad day. This feels bigger. And what really got me, it's not the soda, it's not the coffee, it's the fact a whole floor saw that. And nobody said anything. Not one person. And I'm just sitting here how does that even happen? 48 hours later, an email went out to every employee at Stonebridge Media Corp. Subject line: mandatory all-hands meeting, Friday, 2 p.m. The body was short. The CEO of Pinnacle Ventures Group would be visiting Stonebridge for the first time since the acquisition. All employees were required to attend. No exceptions. The floor buzzed with nervous energy all morning. People whispered in hallways. Speculation flew between cubicles. Was this about layoffs? Restructuring? A new direction? Craig Dawson wasn't nervous at all. He leaned back in his chair with his hands behind his head, legs stretched out under his desk like a man who owned the building. He'd put on his best blazer, straightened his tie twice in the bathroom mirror, even polished his shoes, something he hadn't done in months. "This is our shot," he told Tanya, grinning. "The new CEO comes in, sees me running the best department on the floor. I have a VP title by Christmas." Tanya laughed. "You deserve it. Nobody works harder than you, Craig." At 1:55, Craig walked past Brielle's desk, the one shoved against the far wall, facing a blank partition. He didn't even glance at her. She was invisible to him, had been for weeks. Brielle sat quietly, hands folded, eyes straight ahead. The thin chain around her neck, the one holding her wedding ring, rested against her collarbone beneath her shirt. At 2 o'clock, the entire company filed into the main conference hall. Over 100 people, rows of chairs facing a podium with a large screen behind it. The room smelled like carpet cleaner and anxiety. Craig sat in the third row, center seat, Tanya beside him. He adjusted his tie one more time and whispered something that made Tanya cover her mouth, laughing. Brielle sat in the last row, far corner, alone. The double doors at the front of the room opened. Derek Williams walked in. 6'2", dark suit, no notes, no entourage, just a man who carried authority in the way he moved. Unhurried, deliberate, every step measured like he'd already calculated how this room would end. He stepped to the podium, placed both hands on the edges, scanned the room slowly, row by row, face by face. His eyes found Brielle in the back corner, the faintest nod, so subtle that no one in the room caught it. Craig leaned toward Tanya. "This is the guy?" He looked Derek up and down. A smirk crossed his face, quick, reflexive, the kind of expression a person makes when they've already decided someone doesn't belong. Derek began speaking, professional, measured. He talked about the acquisition, the vision for Stonebridge going forward, integration, opportunity, growth, the standard language of corporate leadership. People relaxed. Some nodded along. Craig sat with his arms open across the back of Tanya's chair, nodding like a man who already agreed with everything being said. Then Derek paused. The room shifted. Something in his tone changed, like a door closing quietly before the lock turns. "Part of my process with any acquisition," Derek said, "is understanding the culture of an organization, not from reports, not from leadership briefings, from the inside." He let that sit. "So, a few weeks ago, I asked someone I trust more than anyone in my life to join this company at the lowest level. No title, no privileges, no one knew who she was. Her job was simple: experience this workplace the way any new employee would and report what she found." The room went still. Craig's smile faded, not all at once, in pieces, like a mask cracking. "That person," Derek said, "is my wife, Brielle Williams." Silence. Not the comfortable kind, the kind that sucks the oxygen from a room. Every head turned. 100 necks twisting toward the back corner where Brielle sat with her hands folded in her lap. The woman they'd ignored. The woman they'd watched get soda poured on her head. The woman they'd let eat alone every day for a month. Craig's face went white. Not slowly, instantly. The blood just left. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Tanya grabbed the armrest of her chair with both hands. Nolan Foster, sitting near the side aisle, gripped his knees so hard his knuckles turned yellow. Derek continued. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "What my wife experienced at this company, and what I personally witnessed through the security cameras installed in this building, was a systematic pattern of racial harassment, physical assault, and institutional cover-up." He pressed a button on the remote in his hand. The large screen behind him lit up. Security footage, high definition, time-stamped. The break room. Craig walking toward Brielle with a 32-ounce cup of soda, tilting it over her head. The slow pour, cola running down her face, her white blouse turning dark. The laptop screen is going black. Craig setting the empty cup down, his mouth moving. Now you know where you belong. Cut. The break room again. Tanya walking toward Brielle with an iced coffee. The throw. Direct hit. Ice cubes scattering across the floor. Brielle gasping. Tanya smiling. You always look so dirty. Cut. Craig leaning against the counter, arms crossed, grinning. This room isn't for you. The footage played for 90 seconds. Nobody in that conference hall breathed. When the screen went dark, Derek looked directly at the third row. Craig Dawson, Tanya Prescott, Nolan Foster. 3 names, spoken the way a judge reads a verdict. You will meet with our legal team immediately following this meeting. Your employment at this company is suspended, effective right now. The meeting ended. Nobody moved at first. People sat in their chairs like they'd been nailed to them. Eyes down, hands in laps. The conference hall had the heavy, suffocating silence of a room full of people who just realized they'd been standing on the wrong side of history for a month. Then the doors opened, and 2 members of Pinnacle's corporate security team stepped inside. Dark suits, earpieces, clipboards. They didn't look angry. They didn't need to. Their presence said everything. Craig was the first to stand. His legs were unsteady. The blazer he'd pressed that morning was wrinkled now. He'd been gripping his own sleeves without realizing it. His face had gone from white to gray. The confidence, the swagger, the 12-year king of the marketing department, gone, replaced by something small and desperate. He tried to intercept Derek in the hallway, half walking, half stumbling, cutting in front of him before security could react. Sir, please, there's been a misunderstanding. I swear I didn't know she was... Derek stopped walking. He looked at Craig the way you look at something you've already decided to throw away. If you had known she was my wife, Derek said, you would have treated her differently? Craig opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing. That, Derek said quietly, is exactly the problem. He stepped around Craig and kept walking, didn't look back. Security took Craig by the elbow, not rough, just firm. The kind of grip that tells a man the conversation is over and the only direction left is out. They walked him back to his desk. The entire floor watched. Craig packed his things in a cardboard box with shaking hands. His coffee mug, a framed photo of himself shaking hands with some client at a golf tournament, a stress ball with the Stonebridge logo, 12 years of career fitting into one box that a man could carry with one arm. He walked past the break room on his way out, the same break room where he poured soda over Brielle's head. The fluorescent light was still buzzing. The round table was still there. The chair where Brielle had been sitting was empty. Craig didn't look inside. He kept his eyes on the floor and walked faster. Tanya was next. She didn't try to talk to Derek. She went straight to tears. Loud, messy, theatrical tears. Mascara running down both cheeks, hands trembling, voice cracking in all the right places. It was just a joke, she told the security escort. We were just messing around. I didn't mean anything by it. Oh my God, this is so unfair. I'm being punished for a joke? The security officer didn't respond. He handed her a box and gestured toward her desk. Tanya packed faster than Craig. Her hands were shaking so badly, she dropped her phone twice. A framed motivational quote, "Boss babe energy," cracked when she shoved it into the box. She tried one last thing on her way out. She turned to a cluster of coworkers standing near the elevator. The same coworkers who had laughed with her, eaten lunch with her, forwarded her break room etiquette email without a word of pushback. You guys know me, Tanya said, tears still streaming. You know I'm not like that, right? Tell them. Someone tell them. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Every single person in that cluster looked at the floor. Tanya's face crumbled. Security guided her into the elevator. The doors closed. Nolan Foster didn't make it to the hallway. He was pulled into a conference room before the all-hands meeting had fully emptied. Pinnacle's lead counsel was already sitting at the table with a laptop open and a stack of printed documents. The evidence was laid out in front of him, piece by piece. Brielle's complaint? Never filed. No record in the system. The 3 prior complaints from former employees of color, all resolved with 0 consequences. Dana's termination 6 weeks after filing her report, despite spotless performance reviews. Nolan tried to explain. I was trying to keep the peace. Craig's been here a long time. He's a strong performer. I made a judgment call. You made a judgment call, the counsel repeated, to protect a man who poured soda on a woman's head because of the color of her skin, and then you erased her complaint. Nolan had nothing left. His shoulders dropped, his hands went flat on the table. He stared at the printed documents like they were a mirror, showing him something he'd spent years refusing to see. He was terminated on the spot. Gross negligence, complicity, failure of duty. Security escorted him out through the back entrance. No cardboard box, no goodbye. After all of them were gone, Brielle stood alone in the break room. The same table, the same fluorescent buzz overhead. But it's different now, emptied of everything that had made it a place of humiliation. Sheila Greer found her there, stood in the doorway for a moment before stepping inside. I should have said something sooner, Sheila said quietly. Brielle looked at her, a long, steady look, the kind that holds more than words can carry. You were kind to me when no one else was, Brielle said. That matters more than you know. The doors closed on Craig, Tanya, and Nolan. But the story didn't end there, not even close. Within 72 hours, Pinnacle Ventures Group launched a full-scale internal investigation at Stonebridge Media Corp. Derek didn't use Stonebridge's own team. He brought in an independent firm, Marshall and Keene, one of the top workplace investigation agencies on the East Coast. No ties to Stonebridge, no loyalty to anyone inside the building. The investigators spent 2 weeks inside the company. They reviewed every email, every HR file, every security camera recording from the past 18 months. They conducted confidential interviews with over 40 current employees. What they found was worse than the footage. Craig Dawson's behavior wasn't new. It was a pattern stretching back years. Racial comments disguised as jokes in meetings. Black employees excluded from high-value projects without explanation. A consistent cycle. A new employee of color would arrive. Craig would target them. Nolan would bury the complaints. And eventually, the employee would either quit or get pushed out. The investigators contacted the 3 former employees of color who had filed complaints against Craig. All 3 agreed to give formal statements. The first, a man named Jerome, described being called the quota kid by Craig in front of the entire sales team. He resigned after 4 months. The second, a woman named Alicia, said Craig told her she was only here because the company needed to check a box. She lasted 5 months before the isolation became unbearable. The third was Dana, the one who'd been fired. She broke down during her interview. She said she'd loved that job. She said she'd worked harder than anyone on her team. She said the day Nolan told her she was being let go for performance issues, she went home and didn't leave her apartment for 2 weeks. 3 people, 3 careers, 3 lives disrupted because one man believed he was untouchable, and one HR director made sure he stayed that way. 1 week after the investigation concluded, Brielle filed a civil lawsuit. The defendants, Craig Dawson, Tanya Prescott, and Stonebridge Media Corp. The charges, racial harassment, hostile work environment, destruction of personal property, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The lawsuit was filed in Mecklenburg County Superior Court. The filing included security camera footage, the suppressed HR records, testimony from former employees, and Brielle's personal documentation. every entry from the leather notebook she'd been writing in since day one. Separately, the Mecklenburg County District Attorney's Office reviewed the footage and filed criminal charges against both Craig and Tanya. The charge? Misdemeanor assault and battery under North Carolina General Statute 1433. Pouring liquid on someone deliberately and with intent to humiliate constitutes unlawful physical contact under state law. Craig hired a defense attorney, an expensive one. The attorney reviewed the evidence and gave Craig one piece of advice: settle, accept responsibility, minimize the damage. Craig refused. It was soda, he told his attorney. I'm not going to ruin my life over soda. His attorney warned him. Craig didn't listen. The deposition was a disaster. Craig sat across from Brielle's legal team in a conference room with the court reporter recording every word. He was asked to describe what happened in the break room on the day in question. His answer: I spilled some soda. It was an accident. She's blowing this way out of proportion. The attorney played the security footage on a laptop screen, frame by frame. The deliberate walk, the slow pour, the empty cup was placed on the table. The words, "Now you know where you belong." Craig watched himself on screen. He had nothing to say. Then came the question that ended him. Mr. Dawson, do you believe your actions were racially motivated? Craig scoffed, literally scoffed, loud enough for the court reporter to note it in the transcript. It's just soda. I don't see why this is such a big deal. That quote was leaked within 48 hours. A paralegal shared it, a journalist picked it up, and then the internet did what the internet does. It went everywhere. The Charlotte Observer ran the story first. Front page, below the fold. Headline: Stonebridge employee poured soda on black coworker's head. Company covered it up. Then the national outlets picked it up. CNN, MS, NBC. The story had everything: security footage, a corporate cover-up, a CEO who happened to be watching, and a defendant arrogant enough to say it's just soda under oath. The footage went viral. Millions of views in the first week alone. Craig's face was everywhere. Tanya's smile as she threw the iced coffee, frozen in screenshots, shared across every platform. Their social media accounts were found within hours. Old posts surfaced. Craig joking about diversity quotas on Facebook. Tanya sharing memes mocking black culture on Instagram. Screenshots spread like wildfire. A prominent civil rights attorney saw the coverage and reached out to Jerome, Alicia, and Dana. She offered pro bono representation. All three accepted. All three filed separate lawsuits against Stonebridge Media Corp. And Nolan Voss personally. The civil trial lasted 4 days. Judge Catherine Moore presided. The evidence was overwhelming and methodical. Security footage played 3 times for the jury. The suppressed HR records were entered as exhibits. Jerome, Alicia, and Dana each took the stand and described what Craig had done to them and what Nolan had failed to do. Brielle testified last. She spoke clearly, no dramatics, no tears. She described the soda, the coffee, the isolation, the emails. The desk moved to face a blank wall. The HR meeting where her complaint was erased. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Craig Dawson and Tanya Prescott were found liable on all counts. Craig was ordered to pay substantial damages for harassment, emotional distress, and destruction of property. Tanya was held jointly liable for the iced coffee assault and her role in the sustained harassment campaign. In criminal court, both received misdemeanor assault convictions, 12 months probation, 200 hours of community service, mandatory completion of a certified anti-discrimination and racial sensitivity program, permanent criminal records. Nolan Voss settled the separate lawsuit brought by the 3 former employees before it reached trial. The settlement amount was undisclosed, but his career in human resources was finished. No company would touch him. His name was in every article. His face was in every broadcast. Under Derek's direction, Stonebridge Media Corp established a new Office of Equity and Accountability. an independent body with direct reporting access to Pinnacle's executive board, bypassing local HR entirely. Its mandate: investigate complaints within 72 hours with full transparency and zero tolerance. Derek personally appointed Sheila Greer to an advisory role on the committee. The quiet IT technician who had whispered, "I see what they're doing," was now helping make sure it never happened again. So where are they now? Brielle Williams didn't go back to the coordinator desk. She didn't need to. The mission was complete, and what it revealed changed more than one company. 3 months after the trial, Derek offered Brielle a formal position at Pinnacle Ventures Group, Vice President of Corporate Culture. Not a symbolic title, not a PR move, a real seat at the table with real authority. Her first act was building a framework that Pinnacle would apply to every future acquisition. Before the numbers, before the contracts, before the signatures, a culture audit, anonymous surveys, confidential interviews, independent review. If the culture was rotten, the deal didn't close until it was fixed. Brielle published an essay about her experience. She didn't name Craig or Tanya. She didn't need to. The essay was shared over 200,000 times in its first week. HR departments across the country printed it out and pinned it to their bulletin boards. Derek implemented mandatory culture assessments for every company under Pinnacle's umbrella. 46 subsidiaries, over 12,000 employees, every single one subject to the same standard. In an interview with the Charlotte Business Journal, Derek said one sentence that ended up quoted more than anything else in the entire story. The measure of a company isn't its revenue, it's how it treats the person with the least power in the building. Craig Dawson disappeared from the industry. His LinkedIn went dark. Every recruiter in media and advertising had seen the footage. Every HR department had read the articles. He relocated to a small town in another state. No one heard from him again. Tanya Prescott posted a public apology video on Instagram 3 weeks after the verdict, 2 minutes long. She cried through most of it. She said she was deeply sorry and not the person in that video. The top comment with 14,000 likes read, "You literally threw coffee in a woman's face and smiled. That's exactly who you are." Tanya deleted the video after 48 hours. She took a low-level job in another state under a different professional profile. She never worked in marketing again. Nolan Foster retired early. He had no choice. His name was permanently tied to every article about the Stonebridge scandal. He moved to a lake house outside Asheville. Former colleagues said he refused to talk about what happened. Sheila Greer thrived. Her advisory role on the Office of Equity and Accountability became a full-time position within 6 months. She designed the onboarding program every new Stonebridge employee would go through, centered on respect, accountability, and the courage to speak up. She mentored young employees of color across the company. She became the person she wished someone had been for her during those 8 years of silence. In the break room, Stonebridge remodeled it. New paint, new furniture, a small plaque near the door that read, "Every person in this room deserves dignity." Brielle suggested the plaque. Derek approved it the same day. Now, let me step out of the story for a moment. So listen. Yeah, the story, made up, all of it. But that part, the soda, everybody just watching, HR doing nothing? Yeah, that's real. That's everyday stuff for a lot of people. Brielle's not real, but what she went through, that's somebody's random Tuesday.